For the first time in my lifetime, the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award has become controversial. I kind of thought it was wrapped up at the start of the season when Damar Hamlin returned to football, was on the Bills roster, played a few snaps. But recently, a few other quarterbacks have inserted themselves in this conversation, namely Joe Flacco, but Baker Mayfield is also hanging around there in the betting odds. Hamlin's still the odds-on favorite. And this really confused me because this is not some statistical award. It's not Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's not MVP. It's not like that. The Comeback Player of the Year award, like all awards, but to an even greater extent, is a narrative award. And there's no greater narrative and there's no greater meaning of what that award is than Damar Hamlin, who died on the football field, whose heart stopped, who could have been pronounced medically deceased, only to be resuscitated. There's no greater meaning to coming back than from that to then being on an NFL roster. And is Damar Hamlin a great football player? Yes, he's in the NFL. He hasn't played a ton. He's still a fine player, maybe a backup in the NFL. And the Bills, understandably, are being very careful with him to ensure there's no chance of re-injury. But he is still contributing in some ways to the Buffalo Bills. His presence on this team, his playing of snaps, has automatically won them the award. And I thought that was kind of the standard take here. Like, yeah, no one's going to disagree with that. So I texted Tristan about, hey, do you want to make fun of those people who are saying, oh, Damar Hamlin shouldn't win the award? I got some pushback. So Tristan, I want to hear why you think Damar Hamlin shouldn't win the award. I don't mean to frame you in this light. I'm just telling the viewers at home what happened here.
You're already setting me up to get hate in the comment section from the Bills Mafia and the people that are riding for Damar Hamlin. I don't really appreciate that. And before I hate on Demar, and that can be perceived by the people who watch this video, I first want to lay out the case for the person I think should win the award. The award is largely narrative driven, but when we look at everyone who has won the award since 1998, it's largely they went through some immense amount of adversity, dying on the field, an injury in the past, or something else. But then they also go on to have a very successful next season. The person who I think fits that the best, who has fought a lot of adversity and has now been very successful, it's not Joe Flacco, who's got a 90 quarterback rating, 10 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. Stats not all that impressive, isn't recovering from some massive injury.
He's winning on the Browns, but so did Deshaun Watson, and we both think he stinks.
Just suffered on the Jets for a couple years, also played on the Broncos, was benched on the Ravens and replaced by Lamar Jackson. I don't think that qualifies as that much adversity. I don't think Joe Flacco, it's a nice story to see, nice to see him succeeding on the Browns, but to me, that doesn't deserve Comeback Player of the Year. Baker Mayfield should be the Comeback Player of the Year. He has fought through adversity on many levels. Prior to last season, had labrum surgery on his left shoulder, was dealing through that during the season. Who knows how long that took to truly fully recover to feel like his normal self. Then in week 5, suffers a grade 3 ankle sprain, gets benched by the Panthers, plays maybe, I think, 2 more weeks for them, eventually gets traded to the Rams. Isn't that good with the Rams? 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, bad quarterback rating, was not that good from a statistical...
He had that banger comeback, though.
There was that. Was not good from a statistical performance. So, played on 2 different teams last year. Stats were bad. It looked like his career was over. Has been dealing with injuries over the past few seasons. Then goes to the Buccaneers. Everyone's making fun of him prior to the year. There's the videos of him and Kyle Trask in the preseason, in training camp, missing throws. And what does he do? He goes out there with the Buccaneers this year, throws 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, has a 95.5 quarterback rating, has tied for the highest completion percentage of his career, and has been balling with the Buccaneers. I think that fits the Comeback Player of the Year definition better than anyone else.
Well, anyone else is a stretch.
Damar Hamlin, yes, he has faced an immense amount of adversity. It is incredible what the Bills' medical staff was able to do in order to save his life on the field. But when it comes to fitting the definition of this award, he was a starter before that happened. He was playing every single game. He didn't play much special teams. Now I think he's played 17 total defensive snaps, has played more on special teams, but has 2 total tackles between both special teams and defense. He's played in 5 games this season. That is not returning to really a solid level of play. He was a starter, was playing every single snap for that Bills defense, and the only reason you can make an argument for him to win the award is narrative. There was no return to high level of play. Yes, he faced adversity. Yes, he overcame that adversity, but it's not like in years past with other defensive players who faced similar amounts of there's nothing really you can compare to it, but similar amounts of adversity. Eric Berry in 2015, he had cancer, went back the next year, he became an All-Pro and won Comeback Player of the Year, had 63 total tackles, balled out for the Chiefs. Then you look when another defensive player had a life-threatening situation happen. Teddy Bruschi won the award with Steve Smith in 2005. He had a stroke prior to, sat out a whole season. I don't quite remember those details, but then he went out. He only played 9 games, but he also still had 60 tackles, more than 2 tackles, and he had a stroke. So I think that's the most comparable thing, and I think the best case and most fair scenario here is Demar wins it with one of the other 2 quarterbacks, who I think would likely be Joe Flacco due to the narrative, but that's my opinion. I know I just said a lot, so I'll let you talk.
I don't agree with you on a certain state. You say, oh, well, the narrative, you have to come back and put up good numbers. Alex Smith didn't do that. Alex Smith played very pedestrian quarterback play after snapping his leg and having his entire calf basically gone, if you've seen that photo. He still won the award. There were players the previous season who tore their ACLs, I believe the running back position, the name is eluding me, who came back over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, very productive as running backs. They still didn't win the award because the amount of adversity Alex Smith overcame just far and away superseded them. Damar Hamlin was not able to do anything football related for 3-4 months. When you are a fringe star just kind of hanging on that starting spot, when you're in the NFL, a 3-month break, and then having to return to practice, return to action at a limited capacity, having to build yourself back up, to still be contributing in any way on that Bills roster after taking so much time off, 3 of the 8 months in the offseason, then slowly ramping back up to being able to participate with the Bills. That is not getting talked about enough. It's saying, oh, he just died and came back. That's a narrative. For Damar Hamlin to still have any impact whatsoever is an incredible achievement. They're just not letting him go out there to trot on the field and wave to the fans. They're expecting him to do his job on special teams and occasionally on defense. And he's doing that. There are few other players who had to be treated as carefully as Damar Hamlin, who had as slow of a recovery process as Hamlin, and yet he still wins the award. And I just can't get my head around Baker Mayfield winning it. He had a bunch of ticky-tacky injuries over the course of last season. He had to overcome the adversity of playing on the Panthers, which, hey, if you've watched any of our other content this year, we fully acknowledge that that is some real adversity. Don't get us wrong. The Panthers are a terrible place to be. But you compare that.
I wouldn't call it grade, well, compared to dying on the field, it's a ticky-tack injury, but I wouldn't call it grade 3.
In the grand scheme of NFL injuries, of all the dislocations, the major ligament, the knee tears, bad ankle sprains is fringe.
He also had surgery prior to the season on his left shoulder.
Still, that's prior to last season, though. We're now doing 2 seasons ago. Being as bad in a bad spot as Damar Hamlin was, being touch and go, having America watch you be touch and go, and then to say, oh, this guy shouldn't win Comeback Player of the Year award because he's not having a massive impact on the Bills. I just can't get my head around that. He's clearly the Comeback Player of the Year. No one should be arguing that. This should not be just some, oh, this quarterback was bad last season award, therefore they're now good or decent, so we give it to him. Every other award in the NFL is a quarterback award these days. I'm amazed they have not given Defensive Player of the Year to a quarterback at some point. Jameis Winston, when he threw 30 picks, certainly deserved it. I'm amazed that hasn't happened yet. MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year are all quarterback awards. Just let this one award be about who has overcome the most adversity to be here. That's what the award's about.
Well, you just mentioned the history. You sort of mentioned it, history and who has kind of won the award in the past. Are you familiar with how many defensive players have even won the award?
The exact number, no. I know Barry won. I know the gentleman you're mentioning who had a stroke won it. Is there another one I'm forgetting?
There's 5 total defensive players that have won the award since 1998, and there's a big gap in between that and when the award was last voted on. So there's been Bryant Young, there's been Joe Johnson, there's been Teddy Bruschi, Greg Ellis, and Eric Berry.
Who are the last 10 defensive or comeback player of the year award winners? I believe it is pretty much entirely quarterbacks and then Eric Berry if we're going the last 10. Because again, entire history of the award's one thing, but in recent years, it's becoming a quarterback award.
Normally an offensive player, it's only 19% of the time a defensive player wins it. And when a defensive player actually wins it, you take a look at Teddy Bruschi. He won it with someone else, even though he had a stroke, and that's an incredible amount. He almost died when that happened. That's an incredible amount of adversity. They still gave it to Steve Smith, who broke his leg the prior season and then led the NFL in catches, yards, and touchdowns. Personally, I think that's what should happen, because statistically and production-wise, Damar Hamlin doesn't deserve it. Adversity-wise, he does deserve it. So if you're going to look back at precedent, 2005, Teddy Bruschi, Steve Smith, I think it should be Baker Mayfield, and I think it should be Damar Hamlin.
This is not a statistical award. There's no qualification for that. We're not doing the college football selection committee.
You can say whatever you want about statistics, but that's what it's been in the past. We look at all the defensive players that won it, because defensive players normally don't win it.
No one's died in the past.
Bryant Young broke his leg the previous season, had 11 sacks the next year. Joe Johnson, I think, tore his knee up the previous season, went the next season, had 11 sacks. The statistical production is an element to the award. You could say it's not because it's ambiguous. The definition's ambiguous. But you look at all the previous wins.
And Alex Smith won it and played terribly, though. Like, clearly statistics aren't a part of it.
He actually played, though. Damar Hamlin played 5 games.
He's still playing, though. If you play, how many games did Alex Smith play the year after he, not the year after, but
You're the one bringing Alex Smith up, so why don't you tell me that?
It's, I believe, 10. He didn't start all of them. He played very few games. He played in a limited capacity, yet he still won the award. Why?
So who was robbed that year, then?
I don't think anyone was robbed, because again, if you've seen the photo of what Alex Smith's leg looked like that year, you know it is a miracle he came back, and it's a miracle that Damar Hamlin came back. They should not be where they are. They should.
Yeah, but you're bringing up Alex Smith as a
he is the only other recent player who has had a cataclysmic injury, which should have ended his career, which should have put the nail in the coffin and said, thank you for your participation in the NFL. You're done. He's the only other player in recent memory who's had that happen. Eric Berry, while still going through treatment, incredible what he did, incredibly recovered from that, was still able to physically perform. He did not have some injury, like what Alex Smith and Damar Hamlin had.
You're not pointing to someone with Alex Smith who should have won the award that year, and you're trying to deflect my logic with Damar Hamlin by pointing to Alex Smith when you can't come up with someone.
There shouldn't be someone in the conversation with Damar Hamlin.
But you're saying my logic is broken in that...
If we want to go back and research the Comeback Player of the Year betting odds for Alex Smith's Comeback Player of the Year award, we can do that. I will gladly do that in post. I'm editing this video, remember? But at the end of the day, when there is something miraculous in terms of coming back from this injury, I don't think you can give it to anyone else, even if the statistical production isn't there. I think it is a delusional narrative. I think it comes from a place underappreciating what Damar Hamlin has done.
I think we made our points pretty clear, so I'd like to lay out just what I think should happen, what I think will happen, and also what I think could happen, and I was the most likely.
We're going to 3 different hypotheticals.
There's 3 different hypotheticals.
Let's be clear on this. Hamlin's winning. He's minus 275 going to the last week.
What I think should happen is that Baker Mayfield wins outright, or I think he should win in combination with Damar Hamlin. We've seen it happen in the past with Teddy Bruschi and Steve Smith. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. What I think will happen is that Damar Hamlin either wins it outright, or because of everyone that's been riding Joe Flacco, he wins it in combination with Joe Flacco. So that's what I think should happen and what I think will happen.
Hamlin's winning the award, and Hamlin should win the award, but let us know what you think in the comments below. Your input on this one is appreciated, because clearly there is a difference of opinion. If you agree with either of us, like, share, subscribe. As always, your support is appreciated, and this video may have some dismissal of major injuries, but we do truly appreciate how hard it is. Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield, Damar Hamlin, even if we don't think they should win an award, we agree that what they've overcome is pretty impressive, and we probably couldn't do it.
All 3 of them, you could give the award to multiple people.
No, we're not giving it to 3 people. We're not setting that type of historical precedent. Anyway, we'll see you in the next video.